committee will be discussing the President's proposed fiscal year 2024 budget for the Department of Interior and other items within its purview. I'd like to welcome Secretary Haaland, Deputy Secretary Boudreau, back to the committee, as well as Interior Budget Director Denise Flanagan. I want to thank you all for joining us this morning. To set the scene, I think it's important to note for context that the Congress provided the Department an additional $48.1 billion in the last 19 months, including $47.3 billion in targeted investments through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act, and $779 million increase in annual appropriations last year. But now the administration is requesting another $18.9 billion for fiscal year 24 for the department, a $2 billion or 12% increase over 2023 fiscal year appropriations. So I really look forward to hearing the justification for such a large increases on top of historic funding. I also look forward to a robust discussion in the state of our leasing programs. I firmly believe that we and our allies are going to need fossil fuels for the foreseeable future, and that robust and continued leasing by the department are a key part of that effort to maintain U.S. leadership in energy security. Unfortunately, the administration's actions and the President's own statements indicate a desire to tamp down on oil and gas leasing. In fact, just last week, the White House press secretary clearly said the administration doesn't like the provisions in the IRA that, I quote, don't have anything to do with clean energy. I'll repeat that again. He doesn't like anything in the IRA and that he says does not have anything to do with clean energy. They all knew perfectly well that it was a balanced energy security bill. I assume she's referring to the mandated offshore oil and gas leases that I included, as well as the requirement that oil and gas leasing take place before renewable leasing can. If that's the case, let me first state for the record that American oil and gas is certainly clean energy compared to what the administration is considering importing from Venezuela, and morally cleaner than lifting sanctions on Iran. But I also have to assume she's referring to these fossil provisions because internal interior documents from the Alaska lease sale made clear that the administration has manipulated the law to discourage oil and gas interest. In fact, they said in black and white that they chose a higher royalty rate to discourage energy production at the expense of Alaskan energy security. Simply unconscionable to me, especially as the administration is hypocritically happy to target producers for not producing more while pursuing a regulatory environment and efforts designed to kill the industry by 1,000 cuts. The truth is that we can produce cleaner energy than anywhere in the world, and that production can help bring down our own energy costs and support our friends and allies at the same time. And this also provides needed revenue for both federal and state governments. In fact, the most recent sale mandated by the RA set records for high bids and brought in $263 million. Let's be clear. We would not be setting bidding records if there was no need for oil and gas well into the future. I've been very vocal about how concerned I am that we are still waiting for the next 5-year offshore program of oil and gas lease sales, and the department has said that a final program is not expected now until December. We've never even had a gap between programs before, never a gap, let alone the 1.5-year delay that we're expecting now. In fact, we talked about this exact issue at this same hearing last year. The lack of progress with this program, combined with the lack of advanced preparation for 2024 sales, unfortunately sends a signal that you have no intention of holding any offshore lease sales in 2024 after the final mandatory sale in September 2023. I know this administration has a big goal set for offshore wind and onshore renewables, goals that are relying on continued oil and gas leasing. I don't know why we just can't work together. I don't know why we can't agree that we need a balanced approach. So let me remind you that those are unattainable if you don't do your jobs. I will be watching extremely closely to ensure you faithfully execute the law as required, not only by the RA, but also by the Mineral Leasing Act, to ensure that on and offshore oil and gas leasing continues in federal renewable development only occurs if those requirements are met. Getting back to the budget, while we are being asked to fund new initiatives, we are still waiting on the Interior to comply with requirements in existing law. With agency leadership lamenting the lack of staff and agencies missing statutory deadlines, you would think that the department would be putting its resources towards meeting existing statutory requirements and deadlines. For example, two different requirements of the bipartisan infrastructure law are now 6 months overdue. One to improve permitting of critical minerals, and the other to implement carbon sequestration on the outer continental shelf. Instead, the department is prioritizing new administration-developed initiatives. In my view, Interior's failures to comply with laws Congress has passed is not a question of funding. It's a question of misplaced priorities, or perhaps a willingness to ignore certain requirements. Madam Secretary, I raised this issue with you at last year's budget hearing. Then in December, we talked about it with Mr. Boudreau in our committee's infrastructure implementation hearing after additional deadlines had been missed. So I'm disappointed that here we are again today and having the same conversation again. And I'm eager to hear from you about how you justify this 12% increase when the department hasn't completed the task at hand, but for which funding was provided. I also look forward to talking about the department's role in permitting and changes needed to the permitting process. I think we can all agree that 5 years or more it often takes in major energy or mining projects to get a permit in this country is not acceptable. Although let me note that I was very happy to see approval of the Willow project after long last. This pace is clearly too slow to achieve any of our goals, whether it be energy and supply chain security, reducing emissions, or reinvesting in communities impacted by the energy transition. I look forward to hearing how the DOI is deploying its existing resources and current tools to help tackle this issue, while acknowledging that significant permitting reforms will have to come from Congress. Secretary Haaland, when it comes to these energy and mineral programs that are so crucial to our energy and national security, I must say, for the last few years, it has felt like we are repeating the same conversations and having these same talks over and over. I'm tired, and I know other members of this committee are tired of asking again and again, when will we see progress on the action required by law, and being told soon, and we are working on it. We need and deserve better answers than that, especially given the importance of so much of what the Department of Interior is responsible to do. So I'm hoping that we can have a productive discussion today and actually get some detailed answers